Sometimes, the most innovative ideas come from the most unexpected places. From kitchen gadgets to life-changing technologies, many of the items we use every day were invented by accident. Here's a list of surprising inventions that were stumbled upon, proving that sometimes the best discoveries are made when we least expect it. 1. Post-it notes. Believe it or not, the iconic Post-it note wasn't the result of a breakthrough in office organization. It was invented by accident by Dr. Spencer Silver, a 3M scientist, in 1968. He was actually trying to create a super strong adhesive, but ended up with one that was weak and repositionable. Initially, no one knew what to do with it. But years later, his colleague Art Fry realized it would be perfect for marking pages in his hymn book without damaging them. And just like that, the Post-it note was born. 2. Microwave oven. In 1945, engineer Percy Spencer was working on radar technology when he noticed something strange. The candy bar in his pocket melted while he was near a magnetron, a type of radar tube. Curious, he decided to experiment and found that microwaves could cook food quickly. Spencer's accident led to the invention of the microwave oven, which has since revolutionized how we heat and cook food. 3. Velcro. In 1941, Swiss engineer Georges de Mestral went on a walk in the woods with his dog and noticed that burrs kept sticking to his pants and his dog's fur. After examining them under a microscope, he saw that the burrs had tiny hooks that clung to fabric and fur. Inspired by this, he created Velcro, a now ubiquitous fastener used in everything from shoes to spacesuits. 4. Potato chips. The invention of potato chips is often attributed to chef George Crumb. In 1853, a customer at Crumb's restaurant in Saratoga Springs, New York, complained that his fried potatoes were too thick. In response, Crumb sliced the potatoes extremely thin, fried them to a crisp, and seasoned them with salt. Surprisingly, the customer loved them, and thus potato chips were born. What started as a mistake turned into one of the world's most popular snacks. 5. Penicillin, the first antibiotic, was discovered in 1928 by Alexander Fleming. But it was an accident. Fleming had left a petri dish of Staphylococcus bacteria uncovered, and when he returned to his lab, he noticed that mold had grown on the dish and was killing the bacteria. The mold turned out to be a strain of penicillium that led to the development of penicillin, which has saved countless lives since then. 6. Teflon. In 1938, chemist Roy Plunkett was experimenting with gases used to create refrigerants when he accidentally created Teflon, a slippery substance that would later become known for its non-stick properties. While trying to create a new type of refrigerant, he found that the gas he was working with had polymerized into a waxy solid. This substance became the non-stick coating we now use in cookware and countless other applications. 7. Coca-Cola was created in 1886 by Dr. John Stith Pemberton, a pharmacist who was trying to develop a medicinal tonic to help with ailments such as headaches and nervous disorders. The original formula contained coca leaf extract, from which cocaine was derived, and cola nuts for caffeine. While Pemberton's tonic didn't have the medicinal success he hoped for, it turned into one of the most famous beverages in the world after its formulation was tweaked and marketed as a refreshing drink. 8. X-rays. In 1895, Wilhelm Conrad Röntgen, a German physicist, was experimenting with cathode rays when he discovered that a fluorescent screen in his lab started to glow without being in the direct path of the rays. Röntgen soon realized that he had discovered a new form of radiation, which he called X-rays. This accidental discovery revolutionized medicine and diagnostics, saving millions of lives through medical imaging. 9. The slinky. In 1943, engineer Richard James was trying to create a spring to stabilize sensitive equipment aboard ships. One of the springs fell off a shelf and started to walk across the floor. James realized this playful action could be turned into a toy and patented the Slinky. The toy became a hit and is still loved by children and collectors today. 10. Safety glass. In 1903, French chemist Edouard Benedictus was working in his lab when he accidentally dropped a glass flask. Instead of shattering, the flask cracked but stayed together. Upon investigation, he realized that the flask had been coated with a thin layer of plastic, which kept the shards in place. This led to the invention of safety glass, which is now widely used in car windows and other protective applications. 11th. Superglue. In 1942, Dr. Harry Coover, a scientist working for Eastman Kodak, was attempting to create a clear plastic for gun sights during World War II. In the process, he accidentally discovered a substance called cyanoacrylate, which had extremely strong adhesive properties. Initially, it was seen as too sticky and not useful, but years later, it was refined and marketed as superglue, a product that would become a household staple. 12. The popsicle. In 1905, 11-year-old Frank Epperson left a cup of soda powder and water outside overnight with a stirring stick in it. When he found it the next morning, it had frozen into a solid treat. Epperson's invention eventually became known as the popsicle. He patented the idea in 1923, and it quickly became a favorite summer treat. 13. LSD. In 1943, Swiss chemist Albert Hofmann was synthesizing compounds from the ergot fungus when he accidentally ingested a small amount of LSD, later becoming the first person to experience the drug's hallucinogenic effects. What began as an unintentional overdose led to the discovery of LSD, a substance that would eventually impact the fields of psychology and counterculture movements. 14. Cornflakes. Cornflakes were invented by Dr. John Harvey Kellogg and his brother Will Keith Kellogg in the late 19th century, while they were experimenting with grains to create a healthy, easy-to-digest breakfast food. One day, the brothers accidentally left a pot of boiled wheat on the stove overnight. When they returned the next morning, the wheat had become stale and crispy. They decided to experiment with corn instead, and cornflakes were born. 15. The sliced bread. The invention of sliced bread seems simple enough, but it was actually a breakthrough. In 1928, Otto Rohwedder, an American engineer, developed the first bread slicing machine. Before this, people had to slice bread by hand, which was a tedious process. The first loaf of sliced bread was sold in 1930, and it quickly became a game changer, leading to the popular saying, "The greatest thing since sliced bread." Some of the best inventions in history came from pure accident, whether it was a mistake in a lab, a forgotten experiment, or a stroke of genius triggered by unexpected circumstances. These inventions show that sometimes the best discoveries happen when we least expect them, and that there's always a little magic in the mess.